I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right. Welcome, all you garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people. Welcome to Let's Get Growing Sunday edition here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. We've got a great show ahead for you today. This Sunday, we are doing a garden roundtable, and we've got with us today Tom Spellman from Dave Wilson Nursery and Charles Malki from our sponsor, Ivy Organic. And we're the three of us, if I can get that out, the three of us are going to be talking about urban backyard or orchard culture, growing fruit trees, fruit tree care. We're going to talk a little bit about some container fruit trees and things like that as well too. I've got several container fruit trees around my garden, so I'll have some questions about that I'll want to ask them. So definitely, if you got any questions or anything, definitely jump into our comments section and ask those questions when we got our guests on for our growing roundtable, gardening roundtable that we're doing here on Sundays. On the other Sundays that we're not doing other things with all of our other guests that we have on Sunday, where last Sunday, because every third Sunday, what we do is our gardening book club, our monthly book club. And this last Sunday, we had on with us for the gardening book club Tony O'Neill from Simplify Gardening and his recent book, Simplify Vegetable Gardening. And he was our featured book club book for May. And a really great book. We talked all about all of what's inside the book, and what how he put the book together, and some of the kind of behind the scenes about the book with Tony O'Neill. And it was just a really great conversation with him. And our co-host Mark Boucher Colbert, our good friend, joins with me on the third Sunday of the month for our monthly book club, and he's my co-host, which is really great. We get to have kind of this same type of roundtable thing that we're doing today, but all around some of our favorite books. And for June, we are going to have Christy Wilhelmy. She is from Garden Nerd, and her book, Garden Variety, that she wrote, I think year before last. I think it's pretty recent, but this is a great read. It's fun. It's a little bit different than what we think when we're thinking garden books, being more instructional or that sort of thing. But this is a fictional tale about a community garden in Los Angeles, kind of inspired by a community garden that she gardened in for. And I believe still gardens in, actually, but and it's kind of inspired by people and things around that and all of it. But it's a really fun kind of tale of a bunch of different people and a couple of characters involved with what's going on with their community garden and some things that are happening. And it's just kind of a fun tale, even with some gardening tips, though, kind of sprinkled in throughout the book and everything. It's just a really fun read. So we're gonna kind of enjoy that book this month, and then talk with Christy Wilhelmy third Sunday of next month for June, and that's what we'll be doing there as well too. And also just want to kind of have everybody here at the top of the show, if you are joining with us, be sure to hit the thumbs up, click the like button, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And there's a bell notification. You can be notified of our upcoming episodes and shows that we have coming here each and every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time here on the Urban Gardener channel on YouTube. And Yeah, come and join with us. We've got lots of great guests, like our guest that we have here today, joining with us here in just a little bit today to talk about tree care, which is going to be really fun. Got lots of questions for our guests, so definitely be sure to drop in your questions and comments and all of that as well too into the comment section there, and especially if you got any questions of our guests, and we'll try to sprinkle those questions in our conversation here in just a little bit later on. And also, big huge shout out to all of you who are watching the replay here at the top of the show as well too. I know our show is live, and we've got a live audience and a live show, but it is great that the YouTube it stays on as basically a video for everybody to watch a replay later on. So we're really happy to have all of you replay watchers joining with us right now, which is later, but right now for you. And thank you for joining with us. And definitely jump into the comment section. That's what we're pushing this year is comments, comments, comments. Let me know you're here. Say hi. If you have any questions or anything like that, jump into the comment section down below. If you got any suggestions for any guests you'd like to see in upcoming shows for us as well too, I'd love to hear about people you'd like to see on the show. So get into the comment section below for sure, and let me know all about all of that and what you have growing on as well too. So really awesome again to have all of you here with me. Last week, or actually let's talk about yesterday, we had a really great show yesterday for our Saturday edition of the show. We had our featured guest was Vikram Baliga, the plant professor, and he is a professor of soil and plant sciences, an actual PhD, yeah, soil and plant sciences out of Texas Tech University. And we had a great conversation talking about all of the things that he does there at the university and does with his reels and everything too. One of the things that I really like about Vikram is that he does these reels where he kind of busts garden myths, with some real plant science and some real knowledge and everything. And just really great to talk with him about some garden myths, talk about those in general, and talk about he has a book that he wrote for kids about plant science and plants and how they affect different things, and just a really great book we talked about, as well as his planthropology podcast as well too, where he interviews some really smart people. So great conversation yesterday with Vikram. Plus we also got to meet Alexis from at the Urban Gardener. She has a great Instagram account. She puts out some pretty great reels as well too. We were following Alexis and talking all about her urban garden in Washington, D.C. Again, I love talking to people who are doing things and growing things right in the city. And so that was a great conversation talking about Alexis and her gardening right there in Washington, D.C. So that was a great conversation. I hope you all go and check that out as well too. And just again, real forward promotion, because I want to real quickly let you know next Saturday we're going to have with us Scott Head from Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. He'll be joining with us. We'll have some more great backyard gardening conversations, as he's got a really great channel there, Black Gumbo Southern Gardening, and return guest as well too. He was one of our earliest guests we had on the show when we got started last year. So it'd be great to have Scott back and talk with Scott again more about all the things that he's got growing on this year and catch up with what's been going on since we last talked to him here on the show. And also one last forward promotion for his show, and I'm really kind of excited about this one because this was really kind of a person I've been following since years and years ago when I first started gardening, and I first started going to YouTube and learning about different things and growing things, and I started following this guy's channel. He's from Australia, and we're going to have with us on June 8th Mark Valencia from Self Sufficient Me will be joining with us, and this is just going to be a real treat. He was literally the top of my list for guests, just the big guests I really wanted to have on. Mark is probably the first gardener on YouTube to reach 1 million subscribers, I'm pretty sure. And then, of course, there are several other channels now who've got millions and all of that as well. But I believe Mark was the first to hit 1 million, and now he's just really built a really great channel and just really done so well. And it's been kind of fun to watch him from so early on to see where he is today. And I'm now finally going to get the pleasure of having him on our show and getting to introduce him to all of you. And we'll get to have a great conversation with Mark and be able to ask him all sorts of awesome questions. I know I've got a ton of questions for him as well too. So you're definitely going to want to tune in June 8th. And one other thing about that show though as well is that we will be bumping up the show time 1 hour. So we always do the show 11 a.m. Pacific time, but we will bump that up to 12 p.m. Pacific time, right at noon. We'll be doing the show for that one there because Mark, in order to do the show live with us, which is really awesome. A lot of times we get a really big guest and we got to do a pre-recorded interview, and Mark is going to join with us live. So this is going to be really awesome. But for him, he's going to be joining us from the future. He from Australia, and where he's at, we're going to be doing it at noon. That'll be 5 a.m. for him on Sunday. It'll be Saturday for us, and it'll be Sunday for him, 5 a.m. So that'll be really kind of fun to kind of have that work out on a live. I've done a couple of Australian interviews with a couple of Australian guests that we've had on the show before, but we've done those pre-taped as well, so we can line it up so it wasn't so out of time. But Mark was like, hey, you know what, 5 a.m. is perfectly fine with me. He's an early riser, so we're going to have him on the show, and I'm super excited about that. So definitely tune in for that as well too when it comes June 8th for sure. So yeah, lots and lots going on here on the show, as we've been talking about here. Lots of great guests, and again, to definitely be sure to share out with all of your friends and let them know about all these awesome guests that we've got coming up. And if you haven't checked out some of those previous shows that we had already this season, go check them out, because we've had some really amazing people on the show with us so far, as well as today. We've got our guests coming up here in just a little bit, but before we get going with that, we got to check in with our friend Mark Boucher Colbert. As I mentioned, he's our co-host for the monthly book club. He's just a really good friend of mine from up in Portland. He gardens in so many great places, and he's a really great garden educator. So let's catch up with Mark in the garden.
Hey guys, it's Mark BC, Mark Boucher Colbert. We're here for another episode of It's in the Garden. It's in the garden with MBC. What's that all about? Anyway, you can see that it is, look at the sky again. Wasn't this the same thing I was doing last week? In fact, it's Friday. I'm almost with you live this week. If I would have waited one more day, I could have been live. I have been waiting to shoot this video to get some clear skies, to get some nice sun, to get some dry weather. It hasn't come. It is very lightly raining right now, very almost a mist. So I just decided, let's just go do this. It's not going to get any better. Literally, we had these beautiful 3 or 4 suns out at the end of the week going into the Easter weekend, and then they just kept getting pushed back. It's always the way in the spring, bait and switch. Anyway, I'm here today to talk to you about when to transplant, when to direct seed, what are the differences, and why do you want to do this? And today it's so important that I made up some little note cards. There's so much to share, and I want to get it all down. So I'm using these blank poker cards, which are actually playing cards, poker-sized playing cards. They're actually great for taking notes. And the key word for today is it depends. Okay, so there's no hard and fast answer. There's very few things that I will only transplant or only direct seed. I'll mention some of those as we go along in the video. But for most vegetable crops, it's either or. By transplant, I mean raising something indoors and then putting it in the ground. And by direct seed, I mean just taking the seeds and dropping them into the earth, right? Even here you can see there's a little something funky. These are radishes, but they're actually sprouted. We're going to talk about that in a minute too, toward the end of the video. Anyway, let's get down to it. I want to review some of the pros and cons of direct seeding and transplanting with you, so you'll be able to think this through on your own as well and make the decisions about whether you want to direct seed something. In other words, take it right out of the seed packet and put it into the earth, or purchase a transplant or grow your own and then put those in the ground at the appropriate time. So let's talk about the pros. First of all, direct seeding, there's nothing special needed. Boom, nothing special. Just you got your seed packet, you got your soil. Of course, you're gonna have to take care of your soil one way or the other. But aside from that, aside from your regular care of the garden, just as a garden, a whole garden, you don't need to do anything special. I'm assuming you're going to be watering your garden when it needs it, when the soil is moist, that's fine. With direct seeding, you can just put your seeds in and let nature's water take its course and help you get the seeds to germinate. Or you may need to water, but you need to do that in your garden anyway. So no problem. There's no increased hazard in terms of drying. When you get your transplants and you're taking care of them, they're in a very small little package of soil. And as that plant grows, its demands on that little small package of soil are going to become greater and greater. There's a high likelihood at some point that you might overlook something, not water enough, and thereby create some water stress for that transplant. So by direct seeding, whatever moisture is in the soil is available to your plant, and it's going to go try to find it as it grows and matures. Roots naturally grow. There's no issue of being root bound. Right here, let's look at that one. DS, Direct Seeding Pro. Roots naturally grow. So there's no issue of your plant getting root bound in a pot and just having nowhere to go. We oftentimes buy transplants at a store and we see those spiraling roots and we have to correct them. Otherwise, we know the plant's growth is not going to be good. It's going to stay very localized and will become stunted. So with direct seeding, that's not an issue. And the last and really important one is that your veggies are exposed to the sun and temperature conditions that will be part of the garden, of their life in the garden. Again, when you grow things indoors or you take something from a greenhouse, that's a protected environment. And you must transition that crop to the UV light that's coming down from the sun, to the temperature fluctuations that are already present outdoors. And that takes some time and some skill. With direct seeding, your crops are going to respond naturally to that. Let's look at the cons of direct seeding. Okay, those are the pros. It's basically kind of easier. Nature's doing the thing for you. You have weeds to deal with. So there's 4 cons here. Weeds, temperature, a period of drought or dry, and the time waiting. So weeds are obviously specialized plants that have fast germination rates, and they're going to be trying to outpace your crop, and they'll probably evolutionarily do a better job at it. So you're going to have a lot of weed pressure. The temperature of the soil is a big factor in getting things to germinate, and because the soil is often waterlogged at this time of the year, it's going to be slow. It's going to be cooler than the air temperature. It's going to respond more slowly. So if you get an 80-degree day, you're thinking, oh, this would be a great day for my crops to germinate. That soil might still be in the 40s or 50s. It's going to have a lot of lag time before the soil temperature gets up. Later on in the season, the soil can get dry, and you're going to have to provide a lot of water to get those seeds to imbibe what they need and start on their journey. And then there's this downtime that you just spend waiting for the seeds to emerge. And especially in cool soil conditions, something like peas, for example, that can be up to a month. So your garden can look barren and vacant for up to a month. nothing apparently going on, and you're spending all that time waiting when you could be growing something there. All right, let's switch over to transplanting. The pros are you get an early start in the season, and that can be either convenient or essential. What do I mean by that? Convenient is like, hey, I have lettuce and I'd like to get my lettuce out a month early. I can get a head start on things that way. Essential is I've got tomatoes, I've got peppers, I've got eggplants. I got things that if I direct seed them, they're going to grow, but they're not going to mature enough fruit in my climate. They're not going to have a long enough growing season to mature and ripen their fruit. So even though I can plant them from seed in the garden and eventually they will sprout, they don't have a long enough growing time. I'm not going to get what I want out of that. Whereas lettuce, something like lettuce, I could put it in the ground and I am going to get what I want out of that eventually. So we grow certain things in transplants like tomatoes, eggplants, and lettuce because it's essential to get the fruit that we want if we're in a northern climate, and other things like lettuce just because it's convenient. This is a great part of the Transplant Pro, you get an Instagarden, and that's a succession aid. Well, what do I mean by those two things? Well, first of all, you can go from having bare earth 1 minute to having a full planted garden the next. That's kind of fun. Instant transformation. You take stuff that's been growing somewhere else and you just put it in to your garden and now it's growing there. Instant. Also, succession aid. In our gardens, it's very advantageous to keep crops growing as continuously as possible. We don't have a lot of downtime if we want high production. So in order to do that, when we're pulling out one crop, imagine having something else that's already growing that we can put in its place. Of course, we could put seeds there, but then again, there's going to be some lag time for those seeds to germinate and get up to a place where they can start to fill in the garden and make it look good and productive and full. So if you have something that's already been grown and you can just pop it in, so much the better, so much the faster. You can use less seeds when you transplant. In other words, you can, when you direct seed, you have to overseed in order to account for some that aren't going to make it. When you transplant, even if some don't make it, you're not planting those in. You're only taking the ones that succeeded. And again, you can, because conditions are so ideal generally where you're growing them as transplants, either indoors or in a greenhouse, you're going to get a much greater germination of the seeds that you do plant. So you don't have to plant as many. So it's a little more economical. The other thing is too, by planting a bigger plant, you can overcome, I didn't make a card for this, but I just thought of it. You can overcome some of the hazards that can attack or destroy young seedlings. I'm thinking of predators and some of the mollusks and some of the arthropods that love to devour our crops just as they're coming up. Sometimes we never really even see them. And we think, what happened? Am I a bad gardener? How come I'm not getting a good result? Well, something may be mowing your crop down right as it emerges. And when you have a transplant, you've got that much of a stronger plant, a head start to get going. Let's talk about the cons, because transplanting has some cons too, some disadvantages. Materials, time, watering, and dedicated space. You've got to have all the stuff that's needed, everything from the potting soil, the various kind of trays and pots. Those have costs. Your time to take care of things, the dedication to water, and then the dedicated space. I'm having this problem right now with peppers. I plant 10 or 15 seeds in a pot, and then those all have to be transplanted into other pots. So basically, every pot of peppers that I plant for indoor growth expands 15 times. I need 15 times more space at this point in the season. That's a big problem. The transitions that are required with transplants, as I mentioned before, when you have your young seedlings just coming up from the soil, they naturally accustom themselves to the fluctuations of temperature and the intensity of the UV. But when you've brought a plant that's been protected and babied essentially from a protected environment outside, you have to transition it both to the level of sunlight and to the temperature fluctuations. So that may mean a lot of shuttling back and forth on your part. Let's talk about, a couple of different ways. You've seen this. For transplants, you can use these coconut pots. These are wonderful because these can be planted entire and they mitigate what's called transplant shock. Sometimes when you're pulling plants apart from a plastic pot and you're trying to separate them out, various root systems will react poorly to that, or you may damage them. This just allows you to sink everything in. I've had great success transplanting peas with this. Another thing I really like are these plastic cell trays. These I don't think are longer in circulation. I got them from Gardener's Supply. But you basically let the plant grow to the right maturity, let the roots fill in, and then you literally just pop it out with your finger, and you've got a little block that's ready to go. Of course, there are a whole range of plastic pots, sometimes useful. Sometimes we're trying to avoid plastic, so we're looking for other alternatives. There are soil blockers. You can make a little distinct soil block units that you plant in. And let's see, I'm gonna finish off by giving you a middle of the road. So for example, these are radish seeds that I mentioned at the beginning that look a little funky because they're sprouted. These are what I call pre-sprouted plants. It's kind of a hybrid between transplanting and direct seeding. I soak them overnight indoors and I plant them out the next day, and they've begun their germination process, which may take a much longer time in the cool soil conditions. So I basically overcome that hesitancy to germinate and put them out, and they're going to just spring right out of the ground quite a bit faster. I do this for a lot of my seeds, and this allows me to kind of get the best of both worlds. A slightly pampered environment indoors to get going, plenty of water by soaking, so I don't have to be applying tons of water to the soil, but then they can grow up immediately in the conditions as they are outside and be totally adjusted to that. Anyway, I guess let's go back to that first card. It depends, right? If I can find it. A lot about, oh God, I can't even find it now. Well, I'll just say it. It depends. So making our choice between direct seeding and transplanting depends on a lot of factors. I hope I've given you some of the pros and cons so that you can start to make decisions for yourself about what fits with your life expectations, the way you want your garden and such. Anyway, we'll see you next week on In the Garden with MBC. Thanks for being along.
All right, all right. Another great segment from Mark Roche Colbert, NBC, In the Garden with NBC. He shares some really great knowledge about all sorts of things growing on in the garden. And right now he's talking about doing seeds and starts. Again, it's at that point in time of year where we got a lot of things growing on in our garden right now. And we're at the point of transplanting out peppers and tomatoes and things that we've been hardening off and getting ready to go out into the garden. So those are getting planted out. There are some other things that I haven't been so successful with my seeds. I try to grow as much of the things that I grow with seeds, but I haven't been so successful with a couple of things like the eggplants I want to grow right now. I've already tried to start a couple of varieties that just, I don't know if I just got bad seed or if it's just something I did wrong in the process, but I haven't had any results from that. So I've started some new seeds, but I'm going to be out there probably looking for plant starts here real soon so that I can make sure that I have some of those in my garden, because I love to have those and make sure that they're growing in my garden so I can share with some of my neighbors and friends that I do each and every year. But yeah, so that's probably one of those things too, is, you think about when it comes to whether or not you're using seeds or plant starts, is that, possibly something may not have gone right with the seeds that you're used to starting, or you haven't, certain varieties and things like that. So if you're capable of finding those at local nurseries and or other varieties to take its place and that sort of thing, in order to make sure that you have some things like that, eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, whatever it is, in order to make sure you got those in your garden. So I've got a few of those sort of situations going right on myself right now. So real quick here, I want to make sure we welcome some people into the show. If you are joining with us here on the live stream with us right now, definitely be sure to get into the chat box if you have any questions or comments, and let us know if you got any questions as we bring our guests on here in just a couple minutes and talk with them about some tree care. So if you got any tree questions or anything like that, definitely drop those into the chat box for sure. But definitely want to check in here and see who we got joining with us today. I know for sure we got to welcome in Jay Dixon joining us from Ontario, Canada, basically YouTube's greatest moderator. We're so lucky to have Jay with us, joining back with us. Last Sunday, we had some issues and we weren't able to have Jay with us on the live stream. And boy, we missed her for sure. So making sure that Jay's with us is a big essential part of our show. So glad to have you here with us, Jay. And for sure, definitely. Let's see. We got Dusty Flats joining with us back on the show. Great to have you with us, Dusty, for sure. Dusty says it's a rainy day, but we need it. Yes, for sure, huh? Right? I don't have any rain in my forecast. I think in my area, in my climate, I'm not sure. We'll see if we get some more coming up. But we've been getting really warm actually, so we'll see what ends up happening. I'm hoping for some more rain myself for sure. Got to Connie Davison joining with us as well too. Connie, great to have you back. Awesome here. Let's see here. And as well, I think I saw, Steam Puzzle. Excellent. Great to have you guys here with us. Thanks for joining with us on the show. Serena is in the chat there too. Let's see here. Oh, Darth X. Yeah, all right. Excellent. Let's see here. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. All right. Excellent. Yep. All right. We're good to go right now. Thank you, everybody, for joining with us on the live stream. And again, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, definitely drop into the chat box there. And also one of the things we like to do too, and Jay makes a point to let everybody know that if you do have any questions, put them in caps there too, so we can kind of tell them apart from other comments and all of that too. So we can try to make sure we get to those questions if you have them on tree care with our guests. So let's see here. Okay, real quick, we're just going to take a real quick break here, and as soon as we get back, we're going to join with our guests for our gardening or growing roundtable this week with Tom Spellman from Dave Wilson Nursery, and from our sponsor Ivy Organic, we've got Charles Malki with us today as well too. So really excited about having this conversation, talking all about growing trees. So definitely bring your questions about tree growing, and we'll join with them in just a moment. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. So yeah, today we're talking about fruit trees and fruit tree care. What is your favorite fruit trees? And again, if you have any questions or comments, definitely any questions about fruit trees, definitely drop those into the comment section right there. And we'll get those asked of our guests here as we bring them in with us today. We've got, let's see here, let's make sure I get the buttons right here. Today we've got with us Tom Spellman from Dave Wilson Nurseries, and from our sponsor, Ivy Organic, we've got Charles Malki joining with us here as well too. Great to have you guys on the show today. Thanks for joining with us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome, guys. So today we're talking about fruit trees. I've got a few fruit trees. Mine are all container. We'll talk a little bit about that as well too, as we talk about as we get this discussion going and everything. But let's just take a minute real quick here to just kind of introduce you guys a little bit more to our audience and everything. And I'll give you a chance here for a minute or so. Let us know a little bit more about yourself and what you've got growing on. Tom, thanks again for joining with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I've been in horticulture in Southern California for over 50 years. Been growing, my own gardens, my own fruit trees, my own collections of plants for as long as I can remember. And it's always been a trial and error effort. And I think that's one of the great things about this. I never tell anybody there's a right way and there's a wrong way. It's what works best for you. So
yeah,
I never argue with anybody about their philosophies. I just tell them what has worked well for me.
Excellent. Which is definitely got to be a great guide for those people who need it as well, though, too, is that experience. That's really awesome. And Charles, man, thanks for joining back with us. You've been on the show many times. How are we doing there over at Ivy Organics, Charles?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for having me. I know the two of us have worked together for many years, and it's awesome being in the presence of my personal mentor, Tom Spellman. And it has a similar story. I've been in the horticultural field since my earliest memories, gardening with mom, sharing the passion with my grandfather, and then making it my education at the university level, and then now in business as well. So it's been a lifelong passion as well, and it's awesome being connected. And I really appreciate this networking that you've done and bringing us all together on this awesome Sunday morning. Happy Memorial Day weekend to all of you and all the men and women that serve our country and make it a better place to live.
Yeah. Thanks again for mentioning that. Yeah, definitely happy Memorial Day to everybody. Memorial Day weekend this weekend. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are out right now enjoying that, but definitely great to have you two here talking about fruit trees. I'll just mention too, for one, Charles, you're just a huge supporter of our channel and obviously a sponsor of our show and all of that too. And we really appreciate all that you do on that end as well. But early influence for me though too, because early on when I was growing and gardening, I dabbled with some trees, and I don't got space and I don't got a place I rent. So my trees got to be in containers. I can't put them in the ground. So I dabbled with a couple of citrus trees because I really like citrus, and it wasn't really the best way to start for me because of where I live, and that just kind of didn't work out. And so I kind of gave up on the idea of like fruit trees for a while until I met and started talking with you, Charles, and seeing what you were doing with your backyard trees and everything. So then I remember it was like after one of those first visits I did with you at your place, seeing the trees that you were growing, that I came back and went directly to the nursery and got myself a couple of trees to get started with and to start growing. And now my peach tree, which was one of those first trees, is just like awesome. It's got tons of peaches all over it right now. So really awesome to again have you guys here to talk about this here. So let's jump right in to Tom. I think something that this is what, as I was looking in here too, you call backyard orchard culture. Let's talk a little bit about backyard orchard culture.
Well, backyard orchard culture is just a few simple concepts to make backyard growing more successful for the average home gardener. And the things you really want to take into consideration are, number one, size control your trees so they're manageable for you. And I'm not the person that's going to tell anybody how big their trees can be.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is say, choose a size that works for you. and be willing to keep your trees maintained to that size going forward. And as long as you do that, it's easy to get in and prune. It's easy to get in and thin. It's easy to get in and make sure that you can easily harvest your fruit. So it just takes some of the burden out of growing a large tree. And I have several philosophies on that, and depending on the type of tree, if it's say a prunus variety like a peach, a plum, a nectarine, or an apricot that ripens up over a 2 or 3 or 4 week window, I don't want that tree any higher than 8 feet tall. I want to be able to reach every branch from the ground so that I can do all my work conveniently. If it's something that ripens up over a long period of time, a citrus, a lemon, an orange, a mandarin, a grapefruit, avocados that'll hang on the tree for several months, I'm okay growing a tree that's over 10 feet tall, 12, 14 feet, because I can take a 10-foot pole and a basket picker and I can reach every piece of fruit on the tree. So I can go out and harvest a dozen, fuerte avocados, which I did yesterday, and let those ripen up on the kitchen counter. I can go out and pick some navel oranges and some Lisbon lemons and just get the fruit that I need easily. But if it's a fruit that's going to ripen up very quickly, I don't want to have to be burdened with that. I don't want to have to try and throw a bird net over a 15-foot tree. I don't want to have to try and go out and thin a 15-foot tree. So it's two different philosophies as far as that goes. So that's the number one most important concept, is maintain tree size so that it's manageable for you. And whatever that is, I'm okay with it, because if you want to grow a 20-foot plum tree, it's not my plum tree. So I don't have to.
Exactly.
The next most important philosophy is grow what you like and what you'll use. Grow what's adaptable to your climate. I get questions all the time from all over the country. Can I grow a Bing cherry in Huntington Beach, California? Well, no, you don't get the chill hours. So you need to concentrate on varieties that are adaptable to your climate, varieties that are adaptable to your soil conditions, and things that you like to eat. So, if it's something that you don't understand, you don't really know how to use it, you don't know what to do with it, then don't grow it. Grow things that work well for you. So I think those are probably, the two most important concepts to backyard orchard culture in general. So if you just follow those two steps, then understanding it is going to be easy, it's going to be simple, and it's going to make you a more successful gardener. I think another thing that's really important there is understanding your individual microclimate. And I'm not necessarily concerned with your USDA zone or your Sunset Western zone. Those zones are huge, they're vast. They can, cover hundreds of thousands of square miles. What's more important is what happens on your individual piece of property. How does your soil drain? Where do your damaging winds come in from? Where's your cold spot? Where's your warm spot? Where do you get full sun? Where do you get filtered sun? Where do you get shade? So once you understand your individual microclimate, then you can start to put the right varieties in the right area and be successful right out the gate without having one error.
Yeah, definitely an important lesson to learn there too, as I kind of described with my ill-fated attempt with citrus at the beginning. There were things that I probably should have been looking up and understanding about my climate and things and what I was in for. But yeah, definitely. And then too, and I think that's really kind of an important thing too. Again, my trees don't really grow very big, being container trees. So I get kind of trees that are really only stay pretty manageable in a sense, but I think that's really kind of really important. What is our trees, that's pretty easy to do though with trees though, is to keep them and manage them and keep them at certain sizes if they're growing in ground.
Oh, absolutely. Tree size is all up to the individual grower, and a tree can get as big as you want to let it get, but keeping it manageable is one of the most important considerations for success. And when you talk about growing things in containers, it's even more important, because you never want to let that tree outgrow its root potential in that container. So if I would say I went to the nursery and I bought a 15-gallon oak tree. Well, that, you know, that container is going to be 14 inches wide and 18 inches deep, and that tree is going to be 8 or 9 feet tall. So that is a tree that's been grown in that container for a season or 2 seasons, and now it's meant to be purchased and taken home and transplanted out. It's not meant to live in that container for an extended period. So if you want to grow a tree in a container for an extended period, you want to consider the structural balance between the top and the root zone. So if I have a peach tree in a 15-gallon container, I'm never going to allow the scaffolding or production structure of that tree to become any larger than about 1.5 times that root zone. That way I can always maintain it easily. I can always prevent physical stress. It's going to set a reasonable fruit load for the amount of vigor that the root system is going to be able to provide to successfully grow and ripen that fruit. So, you know, it's all about managing size to a balance to the container if you want to do things in container gardening. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Charles?
Well, I just want to, again, go back to the roots. My introduction to Tom Spellman was many years ago. I don't know if it's 5, 6, 7 or plus years. In an educational lesson I did with Cameron Akrami, who's a YouTuber, and his YouTube channel is The Busy Gardener. And we're in his backyard.
Yeah.
And he was sharing and educating his audience on backyard orchard culture. And obviously, Tom Spellman, for those of you watching for the first time, is one of the leading educators on this principle, with the common goal, as already explained, of maximizing the amount of food you can be growing in a limited backyard area. And it comes with a lot of vocabulary. So backyard orchard culture is one concept, and I know Tom's already been going deep into different ideas, but some of the vocabulary I jotted down before we went live is high density planting. Another concept is successive ripening, as Tom was explaining, so you can enjoy, you know, if you want plums, for example, and they ripen in the short period of 1 to 3 weeks, then you're done with your plum season for the year. But if you plant different varieties, one that may ripen in June, another one in July, another one in August, so you can now have 3 months of harvesting plums if that's the goal on your property. So again, to begin with, you're planting, as Tom already explained, foods that you enjoy eating, things that you want, the experience you're hoping to achieve in your backyard, so you don't end up, you know, planting this tree, enjoying, you know, or if you have your peaches, plums, apricots, or 10 different varieties of fruits, and they're all ripening in that same month window, and now you've got 11 months with no harvest. So the goal with, again, an umbrella subtopic to backyard orchard culture is successive ripening seasons. So the goal is to find out what can ripen in the early part of the year, the middle part of the year, the later part of the year. So you're actually enjoying the backyard experience, you know, fully. And another one is also summer pruning. So you're talking about tree size. And most people prune usually depending on the tree in the fall or in the winter. But another important time for maintaining tree size is summer pruning, is another important lesson. And the last one is the 2, 3, and 4 trees in a whole planting method as well. Another way to, again, maximize the use of a small, limited backyard space. So ton of educational stuff. And again, Tom Spellman, you can also follow on his YouTube channel at Tom Spellman YouTube channel as well. So, and I think you put that link in the video description.
Links right down below in the description for sure. Definitely. So go check that out. Again, too, kind of on that idea you were saying there, you're talking, you say 3, 4 trees in the same hole. I mean, so that's kind of my question though, too, is this idea about spacing them up, you know, how far apart, and, you know, what relation that has to with, you know, we're talking about keeping them to a certain size, but like how far apart, and is that kind of related?
Well, that, you know, that's a question that again is going to be based on an individual situation. So every gardener has to evaluate the space that they have to work with and choose what they want to put in, you know, to make it worthwhile for them. But one of the nice things about that methodology, the successive harvest methodology,
Yeah.
is, you know, you can put in varieties where you get one right after the other. So I can plant varieties and have done this many times. We've planted varieties 3 or 4 trees 18 inches apart, 24 inches apart, 36 inches apart, and grown them almost like a multiple trunk tree with a single structural head. So, you know, I can grow those 4 plum varieties together, and I'm getting extra benefit of cross pollination, having all those successive ripening
Just right
varieties
there.
together.
Yeah.
They're all blooming at right about the same time or overlapping in their bloom. And I don't have the expectation that a commercial grower would have. You know, if I'm a commercial grower of peaches in the San Joaquin Valley in California, I'm looking at harvesting somewhere between 250 and 350 pounds of fruit off of my tree. Now, remember, peaches ripen over about a 2 to 3 week period of time. So, does any home gardener actually have use for 3 or 4 or 500 peaches in a 2 week period of time? I don't think so. I mean, if you're not, you know, making gallons of peach jam or freezing hundreds of peach pies, there's no way you can use all of that fruit. But if I took that same space where one full-size orchard tree was growing, say 250 or 300 square feet, and I plant 4 trees in that space, one that ripens in May, one that ripens in June, one that's July, and one that's August. Now I'm going to get, instead of 250 to 300 pounds of fruit at one time, I'm going to get that over an extended period of 3 or 3.5 months. And now I'm going to get 50 pounds or 70 pounds at a time, where I can actually make use of that. I'm still probably going to have more fruit per variety than what myself and my family is going to use, but that's always nice because you can trade it with your neighbors. You can share it with your relatives. You know, in my neighborhood, the first Saturday of every month, we have a little community gathering. They call it produce exchange. Whatever fruit you have in excess, you bring to the produce exchange and you donate it. And then whatever fruit other people have donated, you can pick and choose and take what you want. So there's lots of ways to make use of that homegrown fruit. And quite frankly, when it comes to peaches, when it comes to nectarines or plums, if I have 40 or 50 or 60 of any one variety of fruit, that's a perfectly acceptable amount for me and my family. So, you know, I don't need to consider what a commercial grower is going to harvest or what a commercial grower's expectations are. All I need to do is supply my friends and my family.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, nothing like having a lot of variety and even extras as well too. I love the one of the things we talk about too is one of the reasons why I grow extras, and I was even talking about earlier too, is I'm scrambling to figure out what I'm going to do about eggplants, because I got friends I grow eggplants for. I don't care for them myself, but I grow them for them and I like them in my garden. But you know, it's great to have things to trade with others and to give with others and share with people as well too. So nothing like having extras. So real quick here, we're going to jump in here and check out some of our questions we've got coming in from those in the chat here. We'll start real quick with a question that just came in from our moderator, Jay, kind of in the line of what we were talking about here real quick. If space is very limited, is it better to have grafted branches for varieties? So we're talking about having different trees next to each other, but what about having, and I've seen, that's one of the things I really like about the trees that you have in the backyard, Charles, is you have the different avocados and the different, you know, the different trees with the different branches with different varieties growing on them. So instead of having different trees, having, like, you know, several varieties on one tree.
So I've got in my backyard, for example, a 10-in-1 fig tree. So it's one tree trunk, my grandpa's Saman fig tree, with supporting 10 varieties of figs, from strawberry latte to raspberry. It's actually strawberry verte, raspberry latte, brown turkey. And then I've got some variegated, the Panache Tiger, Martinica Ramada, which is a purple variegated striped fig. You know, and basically combining all the flavors of, most figs are typically either on the sweet honey side or on the berry flavor. And the goal is to basically enjoy, again, through, I don't want to say necessarily successive ripening, because the figs generally ripen similarly, but the goal is to enjoy the diversity of the flavors and the footprint of one fig tree instead of planting out 10 fig trees. For me, grafting worked well because I did it at a very young, early stage so that the branches are low to the ground. And I created that multi-trunk, even structure through, again, proper pruning practices. But again, there could be the advantage of doing the 2, 3, or 4 in one in a whole method, being that, for one, maybe grafting is not your forte, or the other thing being is that the trunk is also too large already at the base for, or you're basically going to be working with that large structure that's already in the ground and basically grafting upon that and not being able to do the multi, trunk method of putting in the varieties and growing them out from the get-go. So again, there's flexibility. It's not one is better than the other, in my opinion. It just depends on, you're the artist. When it comes to gardening, there is a skill and an art to it. And you got to come up with the design and the layout. And if you mess up, you pull it out and you start all over again. And and it's part of the enjoyment and the experiences, kind of like with your house. You sometimes change the color of the paint. You remodel the kitchen. The refrigerator is once on the right side, now it's on the left side. Same thing in your garden. You look at it. If you don't like the way it's growing out, you change it. And I would say my garden in the last 12 years has probably had about 3 facelifts, and it also brings a lot of education to the gardening community as well, as I basically share, the transformations and the logic and the thought behind why I'm doing what I'm doing. And again, another thing I learned from Tom Spellman is when something dies, it also creates the opportunity to now, decide what you're going to do. For example, Enoch, you mentioned the citrus tree and your failure. And just to let you know, I've got a friend in Canton, Illinois, and he successfully grows citrus, lots of citrus. City that, is 20, 30 degrees below freezing, all winter. And, but he has that process of, again, good container gardening practice. And he brings his trees indoors, under grow lights during the coldest months of the year, and pulls them out spring, summer, and fall, and enjoys a bountiful harvest of lemons, oranges, and you name it. So anything is possible truly in gardening if the desire is there, and this, and you learn the skills from good leaders such as Tom Spellman, and you can continuously grow that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's what's definitely going to be a question I was going to bring up here too, is about varieties and thinking about because I want to get back in the citrus game here a little bit. But real quick, before we move on this question, Tom, what about this idea of grafting multiple varieties on trees?
Well, I love the concept, and Dave Wilson Nursery, the company that I represent, we're actually the largest grower of multi-budded trees in the country right now. We grow, tens of thousands of multi-grafted trees, 4 plums on a tree, 4 apples on a tree, 4 peaches on a tree, or what we call a fruit salad tree, which is peach, plum, nectarine, and apricot all grafted onto one tree. So people love that. People love the concept of being able to grow multiple varieties together on one tree. And the nice thing about that is you can go to the retail garden center and you can buy it. So even if you're not proficient at grafting yourself, you can go and buy that tree. Now, and that being said, we've come up with some great collections of varieties that can all be grafted together. I think we've done a wonderful job of that, but it doesn't necessarily fit what everybody's looking for. If I have a peach tree that has a May, a June, a July, and an August, but I take my vacation every year for the entire month of July, maybe I'm better off to plant 4 trees together so that I get one that ripens in May, one that ripens in June, skip July, and I get one for August and one for September. So I can cater that to the varieties that I like. I can make sure that I want a clingstone or a freestone or a white flesh or a yellow flesh that's blushed red. I can bring in the varieties that I like and plant those together as a multiple planting, or I can buy one of the pre-grafted trees, or if I'm proficient, I can make my own collection. I can do what I want with the trees in my yard. So they're all viable options, and they all work.
Yeah, just so much. I mean, it's like you can just really craft what you want when it comes down to it. It's just really great. The next question here, real quick, I'm going to throw to you, Charles. Figs. What's best fig tree for Zone 7A?
Now I saw that in the sideline here, and glad you threw it my way. The number one variety that comes to mind is the Chicago Hardy. It is proven, tried, and tested. One of the longest varieties of figs that have been tested in the coldest of climates. So if you're basically trying to test the boundaries of what's possible with fig trees, my vote would go towards Chicago Hardy, even though there are other ones that are also cold hardy. And that is actually a variety that I'm growing also here in my Los Angeles climate. And it's also part of our annual free fig cutting giveaway that we do every February 1st for the last, I think we're in our 7th or 8th year now. And it's a huge opportunity for basically fig enthusiasts to share cuttings from their, again, they've got to be named variety, proven variety, quality figs. And when they go to prune their trees, we basically now, through basically a sign exchange, share fig cuttings, again, every February 1st on the ivoryorganics.com platform.
Yeah, then again, too, as well, too, as it just kind of goes along with that line, that there are varieties, you know, even in citrus or figs or these sort of things that'll grow in colder zones, colder areas, and that'll grow really well. I have a Chicago out in my alleyway that's just growing like crazy this year. That's really just starting to take to its place. So, and it's been out all winter.
Even with citrus, for example, in my backyard being hillside, and as Tom already explained, with microclimates, based on if you plant in your front yard, your backyard, or side yards, those are all different zones and different amounts of light, different soil qualities, and so forth. And I had I was testing out different varieties of citrus in a shade where it was only getting about maybe 3 to 4 hours of sunlight a day. Tried a navel orange, failed. Tried a Eureka lemon, failed. Tried a Meyer lemon, and it loved, and got like about 30 to 40 pounds of lemon off of this one semi-dwarf Meyer lemon tree that was thriving. So again, just because you failed once and you want to grow citrus in a particular zone or a fig in a particular zone, it's basically try again until you perfect. Try different parts of your garden until you figure it out. The sunniest strip of land that I've got on my property is now all dedicated to citrus and avocados and those types of plants. Whereas the shadier areas is where I put more of the dormant plants, the things that go into hibernation, such as the apples, the peaches, the plums, the figs. All the things that go to sleep can tolerate shade as they're dormant anyways. So that's kind of the way things unfolded in my specific grow zone, which is hillside, and endures about 3 months of shade every single year.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can lend in on that, Charles.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we've noticed over the years, and heat kind of transfers over to sweet flavor. So heat and sunlight for varieties that you want to be sweet is extremely important. If it's a peach, if it's a navel orange, if it's a good plum or a pluot or something like that, you want full sun, you want plenty of light and air movement, and you're going to get the best quality, sweetest fruit. But there are fruits when it comes to flavors that don't necessarily have to develop high sugars. So some of the lemons, some of the limes, I found blueberries do very, very well in a partially shaded area. So if I'm not looking at, and blueberries are kind of the exception. They'll develop that high sugar, sweet flavor, even in a partially shaded area. They'll take the hottest, fullest sun you can throw at them, but they will do well in a partial shade. But lemons and limes that don't have to develop that high sugar, where you're looking for an acid fruit, they do perfectly well in a shaded area. So I've had really good luck with those under partial shade. And if I can go back to figs real quick.
Yes.
One variety that I think is well worth mentioning is a variety called Violette de Bordeaux. And Violette de Bordeaux is an ancient variety that was grown in France probably 1,000 years ago or more. And several hundred years ago, the variety was lost. And it was found about 50 years ago in a collection in Germany. So we were able to bring it back and bring it back into production. It's a small, dark purple fig. The tree is a true dwarf fig tree, Ficus carica, true dwarf strain. And in that, it is only going to get unpruned. It's only going to get about 50% the size of, say, a standard brown turkey or black mission. So still going to be a pretty good sized tree. But the nice thing is you can prune figs back as far as you want every winter and still get plenty of fig production on that new growth in the summer. But, you know, Violette de Bordeaux is an excellent flavor. It ripens up over that long period of time. As we know how figs grow on the new growth, you know, the summer fig crop will set a fruit at every internode. So they ripen just like going up a step ladder from the bottom going up to the top. And as long as we have decent warm weather and it doesn't get too cold at night, you're going to get ripening fruit for a month and a half or 2 months or maybe even longer through the summer and into fall. So figs lend themselves so well into that backyard orchard culture style for that successive harvest.
Yeah. As I see from the comments here, that's already a pretty popular variety. So people already know about that one. I'm definitely going to have to check out one of those too, for sure.
And the comment that I neglected to make, because we were talking about Chicago hardy, is Violette de Bordeaux is probably every bit as hardy as the Chicago variety. So it's one of those that you can grow right here in our southwestern Mediterranean climate, or you could grow it, you know, in the Midwest with some protection.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. So right on too. Let's go back. We had a viewer, Dusty Flats, was in the comments talking about this. We will get into some pests here. We have gypsy moth caterpillars on plums and apples this year, and he asks, what is a simple method to protect apples from insects?
Well,
any simple method at all? I mean,
you know, there's so many variables when it comes to pest control. The first thing you have to consider is, in order to properly control any kind of pest, you need to break its reproductive cycle early in its lifespan. So you don't want it to reproduce 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 generations. By then it's too late. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. And there are different methodologies for control. There's going to be organic methodology. There's going to be chemical products that you can use. My recommendation is that you go and consult a horticulturalist close to you in your area that understands the pests in your area, and ask that question. What are my options? What can I use as an organic control? What can I use to break the reproductive cycle? What can I use if I want to use a chemical control? And then whatever you're using, just make sure you're safe. Make sure you're following label instructions at 100%. Make sure that you're being safe. You know, you're wearing protective clothing. You're spraying at the right time of day, not when it's windy, not when it's hot, not when the butterflies and the bees and the hummingbirds are out there. Spraying either very first thing in the morning or right at the end of the day before sundown, even with an organic product. But you know, get that recommendation from somebody that's in the area, understands the products that are registered in your area that you can use, and will give you, you know, all that information, you know, right up. You know, gypsy moth is not something that we have to deal with here in California. So, you know, I honestly, I couldn't tell you what to go and pull off the shelf and use for it. But the horticulturalist in your backyard, in your neighborhood, he's the one that's going to be able to help you out with that.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit though too. I mean, that's the thing where, I mean, in general, in gardening in general, there's just so many things we deal with as far as pests from one region to the next. I mean, both of you guys are in Southern California, right? So there's probably lots of things, like we're mentioning gypsy moths and things that you don't deal with, but you know, that others do, especially when it comes to fruit trees, because there's tons of different things that can happen with pests and fruit trees, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the insect, everybody's hungry out there. The insects, you know, the birds, the rodents, everybody wants a piece of your fruit. So you need to go to battle and do whatever you can to protect it for yourself.
That's right. Anything on pests there, Charles, that you'd like to add in at all?
Well, our products are
Because I know you got some things to say.
well, firstly, for both Tom and I, even though we're here in the Southern California area, we do have customers and clients all over the country and around the world too. So in regards to issues, we do hear it, we do see it, and we do our best to hopefully address and lend support. In regards to IV Organic, our company, and for those that are new, our company actually started off as a whitewashing company that also added ingredients to offer pest repellent and rodent repellent protection as well. And I don't know if this is the right time, if I should delve into it now or save it for later. But I'll just kind of scratch the surface that Ivy Organic started off and entered the gardening product world as being an innovative, organic, effective, USA-made product. And it basically started off with this product over here. If I can get it close enough to the screen. So it's the Ivy Organic. As you can see, 3-in-1 plant guard protection against damaging summer sunburn, insects, and rodents. When you open this can up, it basically has this base powder and these 7 natural oils. And the base powder is basically consisting of limestone and clay and these milk proteins that create a strong bond that lasts about a year, in addition to diatomaceous earth. And so for those of you that have ever used diatomaceous earth in an organic garden, also offers pest repellent protection. But it's really these oils that now consist of a 7 blend oil, again, all organic: castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. The castor and the mints, so the spearmint and peppermint, offer rodent repellent protection in addition to some pest insects as well. And then you've got the garlic and the cinnamon and the clove that offers protection against aphids and other pests that would be chewing, sucking, or damaging your plant. And what happens when you basically add the base powder and the oil to the can, you can now, depending on how much water you add to it, you can use it as a paste to basically patch up any holes on your trees, any grafting wounds. As you fill it up with water, you've now got a brush-on application that you can now put on your trees. I've got a few examples over here behind me. And then you can continuously dilute it up to 5 gallons. So with this little pint-sized can, and make somewhere between 22 to 25 spray bottles. And there's directions on the back, and I see one in the elbow of your microphone as well. Is the ready,
very nicely placed, right?
And you can whitewash now the entire plant structure. So I have, like, behind me over here the and depending on if there's time for discussion, but the Parfianca pomegranate, which is one of Dave Wilson nursery fruits.
Yeah.
And the Parfianca, what's so cool about the Parfianca compared to other varieties of pomegranates is it's got a very small, soft, edible seed. So it's virtually, when eating it, it feels like you're eating a seedless pomegranate. And these are also currently available in this very limited inventory left, available through the ivoryorganics.com website. There's the blueberry grapes, which I don't know if this time Tom can go into it, but this is another Dave Wilson nursery product. So imagine eating grapes. Again, they're seedless and they taste like blueberries and have some of the highest yielding grapes and grow virtually anywhere in the country successfully. And then the last thing I want to demonstrate for whitewashing is this house avocados. And in general, whitewashing, again, is the concept of basically painting your tree trunks. And the general lesson is the day you plant your trees, the day you whitewash your trees. And the goal is you're protecting it for again, your spring plantings you put in the ground. By summertime, they're now going to be exposed to 14 hours of hot sun. And until this develops a good canopy that naturally shades the understory of the tree, you'll whitewash it to basically protect the bark from first, second, third degree burns. And now the plant can focus more so on flowering, fruiting, and growing instead of repairing sun damaged bark, which is the gardening concept of whitewashing. Had you used, and again, I went through the ingredient list. If you're using a latex paint or a tar-based product from one of the big box stores and you're painting your trees, within a year, all of that's going to end up in your garden soil as the tree grows, expands, shed the outer bark, and now you've got paint in your soil pretty much indefinitely. So Ivory Organics came up with an all organic, OMRI certified, which is the highest organic certification you can get in the country, and basically caters to commercial orchards and backyard growers that want to grow the healthiest organic foods. So that's kind of like a little bit of the background on the whitewashing products. And last thing I'll say, and I've got this blue can as well. A lot of people say, what if I don't have a pest issue? There's the oil-free blue whitewash formula, which is oil-free, and you can simply just use the base powders, add water, and use it just for the benefits of protecting and curbing the weather extremes, being, again, the summer high heats, but also offers, and the way most commercial orchards whitewash is usually in the fall to protect their plants from the damaging cold or winter sun scald issues, where the daytime temperatures are warm and the fluids in the tree are moving, but soil temperature is still cold, not much movement down there, and then followed by freezing nights, and the bark will crack and the plant loses a lot of moisture. And come spring, it just suffers because it's just dried out so much. And whitewashing, again, offers that protection to get it through the harshest, coldest days of winter as well.
Yeah, definitely. I tell everybody I think it's one of those essential products, especially if you are growing fruit trees. You definitely want to have that, especially those, like you're saying, young trees that are just getting started too. Like we're going to have some pretty intense summers here. So I've got to make sure my trees are protected from all that sun scald that's about to start bearing down on them.
So initially, I mean, the goal was to cater to specifically avocado citrus, but it really truly has expanded to all fruit trees, your peaches, your plums, your apricots, your roses. Today I got someone mentioning sago palms. Can I spray it? It's burning in the summer heat. It's a new plant. And the answer is yes. The whitewashing basically helps to, again, control weather extremes, in addition to offer pest repellent protection. So your tomatoes, your peppers, your squash, all your little plants, you can basically spray it, offering, again, aside from the oils that will repel pests, we'll also have the diatomaceous earth that, if anything tries to chew on the leaves, will protect the plants that way. And trying to think another example that came by anyway. So again, all your starters, roses, we basically haven't found any plants we can't help through the process of whitewashing, especially as you use it even as a dilute spray and bring those benefits. And right now we've got a lot of gardening partners that are experimenting in different ways and hopefully bringing that education. And it's something we've been doing now we're in our 9th year, and we've got a lot of support from a lot of educators in the gardening world, all having good successes in whitewashing organically. And the coolest thing about gardening and educating on whitewashing is many of the nurseries and people that have worked there for 20, 30 plus years have never heard of the value of what whitewashing can do for your plants. So it's been fun being at the forefront of what the value of whitewashing your plants can do. And I know Tom usually shares a little bit about how, the origins of the plants and how, they start off, clustered and grouped together, and what the value is when they come out and now are being planted. I'll let Tom kind of conclude the value of what whitewashing is.
Thanks, Charles. So, what most people don't realize when they go to a retail nursery and they buy a plant, okay, it's out in the sun. It's at the sun in a retail nursery. But when we grow plants at a wholesale level, they're being grown virtually inches apart, sometimes 4, 6, 8, 12 inches apart in double rows or triple rows, and each row shades the row next to it. So all of those trees being grown under a wholesale nursery condition are virtually shading each other through the entire life at a wholesale nursery. Then they're shipped into a retail nursery. They're set up in clusters at a retail nursery. So you take that peach tree or that lemon tree or that avocado tree home, and you plunk it out into the middle of the yard where it's in full hot sun, and it's never been exposed to those conditions before because of the way that it's been grown and the way that it's been marketed through the retailer. So the first day that you plant that tree, that is the most important time to get that whitewash on. You want to get your hole dug, get your tree in, get it irrigated. If you need to do some pruning, do some pruning on it, and then get any of that exposed bark whitewashed immediately. And that protection from the sun initially as it goes in, I don't care whether it's November or January or August, it's still, the sun can still be very, very damaging. And it only takes 24, 36, 48 hours to do that initial damage to the trunk or the structure, especially anything that's facing that south-southwest direction where the hottest part of the afternoon sun penetrates onto that trunk or into that canopy. So this is not something where
it doesn't have anywhere to go. Once you plant it, it doesn't have anywhere to go.
Exactly. It has no way to protect itself. And this is not something you want to think about 2 or 3 weeks after you planted it, because the damage could already be done. So the day that tree's planted is the day that it should be whitewashed. I'm a huge organic advocate. And when I first saw the IV Organics product years ago, I thought, finally, somebody's put out something that, is a great product to use. You can mix it up at any dilution rate that works well for your purpose, and it's an OMRI registered organic. I can't get enough. I use it on everything that I plant. I just went through and did a little window pruning on some of my avocado varieties, and I got right up and I touched them up with the IV Organics that, within an hour of after I was done pruning. So it's a wonderful product. It works, and it's saved hundreds, if not thousands, of trees. So
wow, that's definitely something I really didn't think about. For me, I'm thinking like the age of the tree. It's a young tree, so it's got young bark. You want to protect it. I didn't think about the idea that, like you're saying, in the nurseries or as they're being brought up, they're in these clusters. They're being shaded all the time, so they're not even really getting to see any sort of full sun at all. So that just makes so much sense. The importance of doing that is, especially for those who are getting trees into their gardens and their spaces. And I just want to do a little promotion real quick too, since how we're talking about IV Organics. We do have a link right down below in the description. So definitely use our promo code GROW10, GROW10 to get 10% off. And I think you also have like a 5% thing going on as well right now. And it's just a good time to go and get this and get stocked up. Because like I said, I really think when I first learned about the product and meeting Charles years ago too, I just thought, wow, this is just really something. And you don't see it anywhere else. I thought it was just so unique. And then the more and more I've, thought about it and used it over the years, it's more and more essential. And that's what I tell people. It's an easy product to promote because it's so essential for the garden, not just for the trees, even as you talk about, Charles, too. It gets diluted down. You can use it as a pest spray. You can really protect your trees and plants and almost everything else throughout the garden as well with this product. So definitely go down in the description below and go get some of this IV Organics 3-in-1 plant guard and other things as well too. Like they're saying, they got Dave, I wanted to actually just kind of move on and talk about real quick that blueberry grape. Is it there?
Oh yeah.
Talk a little bit. That sounds just really great.
Blueberry grape is actually a variety that came up as a seedling underneath a Concord type grapevine up in Chico, California, years and years ago. And it's a large sized berry. It's 100% or virtually, let's say, seedless. It has a great flavor, very high in antioxidants and phytonutrients. It's something that a competitor company of ours began to promote it about 30 years ago. And I thought, I really like that variety. I really wish I had that variety, but it was their deal. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, they actually closed up their fruit tree division. And we went to them and they had some varieties that we really liked. And I said, I want that blueberry grape. Can we, take over the trademark on it and market that blueberry grape? And they were kind enough to let us do that. But it's an American hybrid type, could be crossed with a European varietal. It's not really, it can't really say because it was growing around several other different types of grapevine. But we know that it's an improved type seedless Concord. And it's very productive and very flavorful. And having that American hybrid parentage, it's also very disease resistant. So it's one of those varieties that you can grow in a coastal zone where maybe the European table grapes like a Thompson seedless or a Flame or a Crimson seedless would be very susceptible to powdery mildew.
Yeah.
Blueberry is almost completely resistant to powdery mildew, so you have virtually no disease or bacterial issues with it on the leaf or on the fruit. No powdery mildew, no black spot, no any type of disease spot. So I've always liked the variety and thought it was something that was very worthwhile. And now we're finding the commercial industry starting to pick up on it a little bit, not necessarily for farmers markets for fresh fruit, absolutely, but also some of the wine grape growers are starting to use it. Some of the people that are making preserves are starting to use it. It's a great variety for just a grape jelly or for like a Concord style wine. So with all the diversity in that market now, it's starting to be picked up by some of these commercial guys. So I'm really happy to see that. I'm really happy to see that it's getting the attention that it deserves.
Yeah, it's definitely one I would love to grow. I haven't really got to start any grapes yet for my my back area that I want to, and I've thought about it for years now. So, and that sounds like a really great variety. So I'm a zone 8B, so that's probably good for that. Is there a limitation? I mean, what the zone range for that? Can most people around the country grow it?
I think almost anybody can grow it. Being an American hybrid, it would be adaptable to the Midwest. It would be adaptable to New England. It would be adaptable to the Atlantic seaboard, as well as the Mediterranean climate here in Southern California. It's done extremely well. I've never seen a climate that it didn't adapt to.
Yeah, that's excellent. Right on.
Yeah, this one is yours. So it'll be the holiday passes. It's on its way over to you.
Well, awesome. That would be great.
Of the people we've been offering them to for the last few years, generally after the first year in the ground, the second year it goes into bloom, sets fruit, and the feedback has been it's been the best grape they've ever homegrown. Ever. It's down compared to any other varieties. And the other part too is by the second and third year, each plant can support, I think it's somewhere between 200 pounds or just something extremely heavy compared to most of the varieties. You're going to end up growing a variety that's going to be delicious and extremely productive, enough to feed you and all of your neighbors as well. Yeah,
I'm just, huge fan of blueberries. I love blueberries so much. So you just mentioned blueberry grape, and I'm ready to go for sure. Yeah, let's see here. Real quick, there was a question that came in just to kind of finish up on the last conversation there. Let's see, they were talking about vine borers. Would IV Organic work well with vine borer? Is this something?
Yeah, I was hoping
to throw out there.
I mean, it's hard for me to share off the screen, but the vine borers, just to let you know, for squash, pumpkins, zucchinis, cucumbers, anything in that squash family, and depending on your grow zone anywhere in the United States, there's these squash vine borers that will chew the stem of the plant, and typically near the base, the bottom few inches, and damage the overall health of the plant and ultimately your productivity and success for growing it that year. Yeah, a lot of our growers will simply paint the IV Organics as a brush on, so it's a little bit thicker. So someone in the comments wrote something, can I spray it? The spray is thin and will help. I would recommend the spray more at the beginning part of the stage when you are planting your seedlings, and just to get it off to a good start for that first month or two until it can handle and sustain some pest damage. But once that stem grows out and before hopefully there's any pest chewing on it, you can put a brush on protection. It'll be a little bit thicker. And again, for that application, predominantly on your trees, will last about a year. On your squash vine, again, depending on the thickness, it's going to probably outgrow it as it doubles and triples in thickness. Over the growing season, you may need to put a second application and continuously protect it as the productivity continues. But the answer is yes, and we have had huge success in helping protect any of the squash family plants by, again, protecting that lower stem so the productivity can continue all season long.
We got any videos on that on IV Organics on YouTube?
No, so maybe
No.
count on you to do it.
Okay.
I haven't seen anyone painting
I
squash.
have not had vine borers, so that's one of the things. So we're gonna have to get somebody out there to do that for
I
us.
know a
So,
lot of our
right.
gardening friends, I always ask
Mhm.
for creativity and demonstrate something that has not yet been done before. In regards to, again, for those that are new, the Ivory Organics YouTube channel, which has over 400 educational lessons right now, the first 200 of them are simply painting trees, whether it be an apple, a peach, plum, an apricot, fig, so forth. 200 educational lessons, the first 200. And with it, we grew to become America's leading garden product YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Now over 200,000 subscribers, and we educate about 5 to 20,000 people daily through mostly YouTube, but also our other social media platforms.
Yeah.
And it's been truly been inspiring to see the world really catching on to what the value of whitewashing can do for the gardens and the rest of the Ivory Organic brand products, which I hope to get into the fertilizers maybe in a later discussion.
Definitely. Yeah, but let's see here. I want to go back to trees just a little bit more here. I've got some questions here, Tom. One of the things that I'm just gone right into growing trees without really doing much research and thinking about it, but I've grown this pear tree the last couple of seasons, and I haven't been getting really any pollination off of it. And then someone suggested maybe you should get a different variety of pear so that you could possibly increase your pollination. And so I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, that's something that's kind of new to me in a sense, is the idea of having multiple trees near each other that to increase pollination. And then maybe you can include, to kind of go back again too, we were talking about grafting a little bit, other varieties. Is that something that would work as well too, as having different varieties on one tree to help with pollination as well too?
So yeah, absolutely. And there are what variety of pear do you have,
Oh, it's a red D'Anjou.
Okay, so red D'Anjou is a variety that we would classify as semi self-fruitful, and that's a dangerous term because that allows somebody to go into a retail nursery and say, "Oh, okay, so I only need one, and I'll get fruit off that tree." And
Right.
you will absolutely get some fruit off that tree as it matures. But if
Mhm.
you can set up a pollinator for it, if you put in a Bartlett or a Seckel or a Kiefer and grafted a branch or two of those varieties into that tree or planted another tree close by, your production is going to go up tenfold. So a commercial farmer would never consider a variety like that to be self-fruitful. A commercial farmer would never plant an entire orchard of one variety, even if it was something like a Santa Rosa plum that can legitimately be called a self-fruitful variety. A commercial grower is always going to put in a pollinator so that they can double or triple or quadruple that production or even more. And it's extremely important when it comes to pears and apples, especially. So if you can include another variety close to it or graft another variety into the structure, your production is going to go up by 5 or 10 times. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, definitely. And then the idea again too, as well, you can put those varieties on one tree and instead of having multiple trees if you're
Right.
even more limited on space.
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent.
But if the tree's young, you can also go in and interplant varieties close to it. So I could put a variety, on the northeast side and on the northwest side, and plant them 2 or 3 feet away from the existing tree, and just
Yeah.
kind of grow those into one eventual living structure where you're going to get
Oh, okay.
fruit off all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but
Like,
either method is equally as successful. You're all you're doing is diversifying the flower type that's there,
yeah.
and allowing more activity for cross pollination, and it works wonders on increasing your yield.
Okay. And then I guess the opposite question then too, instead of having them close together, what if you got a lot of space? How far apart? Do they need to be pretty close together, or is it something
Well,
where if
I
you
always
cross
like
the
to say
yard?
you definitely want them within 10 to 20 feet. Once you get beyond 20
Okay.
feet, the benefit of that bee activity from going
Mhm.
from one tree to the other is going to be very limited. So you'll
Excellent.
still get some benefit, but not near as much. So within 10 feet is always best. Within, 10 to 20 is good. Anything further than that, and it can be, questionable as far as your results.
Right on. Anything else there, Charles? Did you?
Yeah. So just in general, there's this chart that I'm looking at here in regards to cross-pollination, starting with your pear, for example, but just in fruit trees in general, since this is a fruit tree care lesson. Apples, it says almost all apple trees require a second variety for pollination. European pears, almost all pear trees require a second variety for cross-pollination. Asian pears, some Asian pears will set fruit without cross-pollination. Peaches and nectarines are self-fruitful. Apricots, most apricots will set fruit without cross-pollination. Sweet cherries, and the list continues. Point being, some fruit trees must have a second variety in order, and not of the same variety. It has to be a different variety that blooms approximately at the same time, so that wind and or pollinators such as bees and hummingbirds and so forth can exchange that pollen between the two trees. And the other huge benefit of what cross-pollination will do on stuff, whether it be citrus or even avocados that are self-fruitful, is that it'll increase yields, it can increase fruit size, it can increase fruit flavor intensity. It basically makes things better when you actually have cross-pollination between trees in your garden. So for those of you out there that are considering growing, for example, the pear tree, consider growing 2 to 3 varieties, or as Tom Spellman mentioned with Dave Wilson Nursery, they've got the multi-grafted cocktail fruit trees with 4 varieties on one tree, or you put that 3 or 4 varieties in one hole and create that cross-pollination between different related varieties of fruit trees that then improve the overall success of all of the flavors in that vicinity, again, among related varieties. So cross-pollination is a phenomenal concept, and as you perfect your gardening skills, is something that everyone should strive to achieve. That if you really want something in your garden and you want it to be at its peak performance, consider cross-pollination as well, by putting a second variety of something you also really enjoy or would want on your property.
And, to add on to that, Charles, one of the questions that I get still quite frequently is if I have 2 different varieties, will it change the character of the fruit? And that, if I have a Bartlett pear and I put in a Winter Nillis pear, is the fruit gonna be some kind of a hybrid in between the two? And in fact, it will not change the character of the fruit in any way, shape, or form on those parent varieties. But if you were to take the seed of that fruit and plant it out, you could very well have an interspecific that could be a hybrid between the two. Most likely, it's going to revert to the more dominant strain of the two, but you can still have cross-pollination, interspecific development between those. But it absolutely will not change the character of the fruit on the tree at any time at all. So you're still going to have an absolutely true Bartlett and an absolutely true Winter Nillis that aren't going to change character at all, except in the seed.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
So with the word interspecific, this leads to an important thing that also Dave Wilson Nursery offers are a fruit tree known as the Zager genetics hybrid fruit trees. And I know Tom already shared the word pluot, and I know in some of my education, some people have never heard of a pluot or don't even know what it is. But with that, if Tom, you can share the Floyd Zager, and I had the honor and privilege, and thank you, and also my daughter got to visit the Zager orchard about 5-6 years ago, and we got to sample 29 interspecific flavored fruit trees, which are the best in my opinion. Actually, I think everybody's opinion, the best tasting peaches, plums, apricots, and again interspecific. Wow. Cross is one of my personal favorite fruit trees we've got growing on our property is something called a sweet tree pluary. Again, another product of Dave Wilson Nursery. And I'm going to leave the whole discussion and how these interspecific fruit trees are created to Tom. And if you can share what that is as people get educated on the Dave Wilson Nursery and some of the catalog fruit trees that people can get their hands
Yeah. So, well, one of the honors that I have had being employed by Dave Wilson Nursery is getting to know the Zager family. And the Zager family have been in the fruit hybridization business for close to 70 years now. Started by the patriarch of the company, Mr. Floyd Zager, who I knew and loved, who passed away a few years ago at 94 years old and still was working in his orchard 7 days a week. So what they do is not genetic modification, although the name of the company is Zager Genetics. But what they do is open pollination, flower to flower crosses. So they will take the pollen from an apricot tree and pollinate a plum tree. And then they will grow on that progeny. They'll grow on the seedlings of that hybrid and evaluate those for the characteristics. So they have pluots, which are plum apricot hybrids that favor the plum genetics. They have apriums, which are plum apricot hybrids that favor the apricot parentage. They have nectar plums. They have cherry plums. Wow. They have plum peach. They have anything you can imagine. And these are all varieties that are within the same genus. They're all prunus: peach, plum, nectarine, apricot, almond, cherry. They're all in the same basic genetic family. Yeah. Each one being a different species, each one being a little different. So Floyd Zager figured out how he could take the pollen from one and cross-pollinate another. And he wasn't the originator of that. That goes all the way back to Luther Burbank, 140 plus years ago. Yeah, Floyd Zager was able to carry on the work that Luther Burbank did. One of the people he worked with early in his career was a guy by the name of Fred Anderson, who worked directly with Luther Burbank. So Floyd is only 2 generations away from Luther Burbank and what he has done as far as hybridization, but nothing genetically modified. All just simply flower to flower crosses where those seedlings are grown on and evaluated for characteristic. In any given year, Zager's plants out about 60 to 70,000 young seedlings of these crosses and runs those through a 4-year evaluation program. So at any given time, they've got about 250,000 young trees in the ground where they're evaluating characteristics, each one a numbered variety, and each one followed to see if the genetics that they wanted to move on from one to the other has carried through. Yeah. Once they've determined that a variety has what they think it takes, they actually bud it into some larger field trees, grow it on for another 10-year evaluation period. So almost every variety that Zager's releases has gone through at least a 14-year evaluation program. And we grow probably 150 different selections of hybrids between almond, apricot, cherry, plum, peach, nectarine, you name it. Wow, oftentimes when you go to the store and buy a plum, it may not even be a plum. It may be a pluot variety that they just market as a plum. So Zager's has basically, over the last 60 plus years, they've basically changed the fruit and nut industry and done nothing but improve it as time goes on. And they're not always looking for fruit characteristics. Sometimes they're looking for a resistance to a disease or a bacteria. Right. Sometimes they're looking for vigor. Sometimes they're looking for an early bloom character. Sometimes they're looking at making something that's not self-fruitful into a self-fruitful variety. They have lots of other opportunities. They have lots of things that they're looking for other than just improving a piece of fruit. They're improving the genes of the trees themselves and bringing on varieties that have done nothing but increase the diversity and increase the health of the orchard industry for the past 60 years. So wonderful company, wonderful people. And I'm very, very proud to have been associated with them for the last 22 years.
Yeah, I love the idea of all of that variety and creating new varieties. And really, that's one of the fun things about, gardening, growing, orcharding, these sort of things is, plants are amazing things. Trees are amazing things, and there's so much we can do with them in that sort of sense of like hybridizing and all of that. I think when we start getting confused with, genetic modification and trying to confuse things up without really knowing that, we kind of take away from the amazing varieties that are being made out there and done too. And I think that goes across any other plant or fruit trees and all of that too. And I think those things are great. We just got to be careful. A lot of people just like to utilize the semantics of GMO and genetic modification and all of that to make things sound like it is. And when anything kind of sounds strange or different, so you talk about an almond crossed with another variety of a plum or something like that, and people are like, that's strange, and immediately go to an idea that some scientists were engineering and tinkering and doing some things to make it up, when there's just a lot of just natural modifications, if you will, that can be done.
I think the best way to look at this is this is nothing that would not have happened in nature had these varieties had the opportunity to overlap in nature. So, if you were growing a plum tree next to an apricot tree naturally somewhere, then you're going to have pollination between the two. Then the seedlings that come off of either one of those trees could be a hybrid of those two parents. So there's nothing that's been added artificially. There's nothing, there's no moose genes or trout genes in any of these fruits. It's all things that like I said, they're all prunus. They're all in the same general family. They're all, related in one way or another. So, an apricot just happens to be a different species of prunus than a plum, and a peach is a different species, than an apricot. Although when you look at peach and nectarine, their genetics are virtually identical. The only difference between a peach and a nectarine is a nectarine has no fuzz and a peach does. Other than that, the genetics of the tree is identical. So these are things that, like I said, if there would have been a natural area where almonds and cherries and peaches and plums and nectarines were all growing naturally, you would have, over a period of time, you would have received these same types of hybrids through nature.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're only just helping them out by bringing and introducing those flowers and those pollens together in order to produce something later on down the road. Whereas, other genetic modifications, as you mentioned, is something they're completely different organisms, and they've got to take a gene and they got to literally put it into a bacteria, which that bacteria then has got to go in and then somehow make this. And again, it's a lot of tinkering when it comes to that sort of thing. And they're just two different things. And I think when we look at things that seem kind of different, or in the plant world, some things are strange and, different, and that sort of thing. We've got to kind of look at what those possibilities are in the natural world before just kind of instantly nowadays wanting to go to this idea that maybe it's a GMO or something like that. So a lot more learning in the growing world on those sort of things that we got to do. But we could talk about this stuff all day long, guys. I could keep going on and on and on. In fact, I got a bunch more questions and things like that that I'd love to talk to you about. So we're definitely going to have to maybe arrange some time in the future and get you two back together so we could talk some more about fruit trees and growing trees, because I think there's just a lot more to learn, especially when it comes to, growing citrus and other things that I wanted to get into. But we're kind of running down on it. I want to kind of give each of you just real quick though here before we send you off here, a minute or two, to just kind of one more time let us know a little bit more about what you've got growing on, what you're doing, and what's coming up for either one of you. And again, I want to remind people we do have links down below for Tom and Charles down below, so you can check out what they've got going. How about we start with you, Charles? Let's go this way first.
Be happy to. The one other thing I'd like to share with all is when it comes to feeding your plants, we're in the month of May, and plants need to be fed well this month, especially if you're doing the organic regimen and trying to grow food the healthiest way. And by fertilizing your plants in May, it gives you opportunity for the soil organisms to break down those organic products, and make sure all of the elements that plants need are available to your plant come the longest day of the year, which is just a few weeks away now. So by summertime, you're going to want to make sure that the plants have all of the macronutrients. Ivory Organics, because they saw, again, a hole in the education with a lot of people just sharing that plants macronutrients are NPK, which are the letters representing the on the periodic table, and for nitrogen, which helps with the greening and growing of the plant, phosphorus, typically for flowering and fruit, and potassium for root development, strength, disease resistance, and so forth. So you got your NPK, which are the three primary macronutrients. But if you Google, and I do this education for many years, and 90+% of the audience does not get this, is what are the other macronutrients, which are elements that plants need in abundance in the soil in order for optimal growth and success. And there's that question in the sideline about, I've got this plum tree and it's only producing 2 of the varieties and not the third one. Then it could be, again, because it's lacking all of the macronutrients that are required for optimal plant care and health and growth. So you got your NPK. The other 3 macronutrients include calcium. So of your dry weight of the plant, calcium is about 1/3 of the dry weight of a plant, and is integral for the building of the cell walls of the plant. You got magnesium, which is the heart of the chlorophyll molecule, and sulfur, which is very important for the greening and metabolic processes of the plant. And so what Ivory Organics did is it came up with this Ivory Organic 3-in-1, actually not 3-in-1, this is the all-purpose organic fertilizer, and it has all 6 plant macronutrients plus, if my hand's at the star, it includes plus azomite. We've partnered up with azomite, and azomite is simply crushed volcanic rock. So imagine all the plants that you see growing in Hawaii and thriving on all the micronutrient nutrition as well.
Yeah.
So it simply has azomite, crushed volcanic rock, in addition to the macronutrients, and also OMRI certified as well for organic commercial orchard application. But really, it's for that backyard grower that wants to grow and know it's certified organic, the best fruits and vegetables and fruit trees and roses and whatever else in an all organic way, making sure all plant macronutrients are available. And this month only, Ivory Organics has store-wide a 5% discount. And with Enix discount, which you'll see down below, you can take an additional 10%, making this the best time to shop our store. So
take advantage of it
for Ivory Organics. And but aside from that, it's always been a pleasure collaborating with you, and we look forward to hopefully having you on the Ivory Organics channel as well soon. And Tom Spellman, again, my #1 mentor for all things plants, not just fruit tree care. It's been a pleasure watching and learning and bringing the things I've learned as well to the Ivory Organics audience over the years. And thank you, Tom.
Well, Charles, feelings mutual. It's been wonderful working with you for so many years, and I look forward to many years of continued success and camaraderie.
Thanks.
So I think one of the things that I always like to mention whenever I do a lecture, I always bring this up at the very end, and that gardening, whether you grow orchids or roses or geraniums or fruit trees, gardening is something that we all need to get back to. We all need to get back to nature in one way or another. We're only 2 or 3 generations away from being people that lived off of the land. And I can't tell you how many times I might have a bad day and the traffic on the freeway is crowded, and maybe I didn't have my best customer relations that day. And I get home and I throw on my old boots and my big hat, and I grab my pruning shears and go out into the backyard, into my orchard, and, eat a couple of blueberries, and maybe I've got some fresh apricots coming on. Right now I'm eating mini royal and royal Lee cherries off of my 2 cherry trees. And, you go out there and you prune a little bit and you get some fresh air and you get some sunshine, and, you're looking at the hummingbirds and you're looking at the bees buzzing around on the flowers. And pretty soon, all that hassle of the day just kind of melts away. It's not only that you're growing a fruit tree or you're growing a rose or you're growing an orchid. you're doing something that gets you
Mhm.
back to a natural stage, back to where we originally came from. And you're putting yourself in an environment that is relaxing. You're getting some exercise. You're getting some fresh organic food. You're getting the opportunity to spend time in an environment that you've created yourself, that you know and love. And to be quite frankly, nothing is better than that. Watching my granddaughters eat fresh blueberries off the blueberry plants, or watching my dogs chase a squirrel out of the yard, and just breathing in some fresh air and eating some fresh food. And trees don't argue with you. Trees don't argue or give you a bad time.
No, not at
Trees
all.
are never gonna interrupt the traffic on the freeway. So as soon as I get home and get out of that, environment that we all have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, the first thing I do is go into my landscape, and within minutes, I'm relaxed, the tension is gone, and I'm in an environment that I've created that I love to be in, and I love for my family to be in. And I want everybody to take that into consideration, to do that same thing. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't grow 3 fruit trees together. Don't let anybody tell you that
Right.
you can't prune fruit trees down to a size that's manageable for you. Or your
Exactly.
Uncle Joe says you shouldn't grow this type of tree in your yard. You know what? Just do it. Just enjoy
Just do it.
And if you fail, it's an opportunity to do something else. It doesn't
That's
mean
right.
that you failed. It means that now you've got an opportunity to try something else there. And create that environment for you. Create that environment for your family, and you will enjoy it for the rest of your life. So the best thing you can do is to spend some time in your garden, spend some time with your trees.
That's right. That's right, man. I couldn't agree more. So much awesome stuff you just said there that I just love it. It's great. Definitely grow more and get out there and try some things, fail at some things, and just enjoy the experience of being out with your garden and all of that comes with it, though, too. That's just really awesome. And again, thank you guys both so much for spending your Sunday with us here to talk all about fruit trees. And again, there's so much more we could have talked about and gotten into. We had tons of great discussion already, so I'm going to have you guys back to talk a little bit more about fruit trees and fruit tree growing here in the near future for sure. So thanks again, you guys, for joining with us here today.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Let's do it again.
All right. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. All right. And if you haven't had enough of Charles, here's a little bit more. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. Yes, definitely. And as we mentioned during the chat, be sure to use our promo code GROW10 at ivorganics.com there. Get some of that 3-in-1 plant guard. Really great stuff. And take advantage of that extra 5% off as well, too. Go get some right now for sure. And again, thanks to Tom Spellman and Charles Malki from IV Organics joining with us here today for a great discussion on growing fruit trees. So again, like I said, so much more I wanted to talk about, but definitely we'll get into doing that hopefully real soon and have them back again for some more conversation on that. Lots of great questions from everybody in the conversation as well, too. thank you so much, everybody, for jumping in and bringing some really great questions for us too as well there. So let's see here. Jersey Girls is, as we were talking about, I'm pretty good at failing and falling, but I learned fast from those failures. Exactly. And that's exactly, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And the garden is a great spot or a great place where you can learn from lots of them, because I'll tell you for sure, I've killed more plants than I've succeeded at for sure. But again, we always learn more, and we also get that really great connection with nature and growing. And really, when we talk about growing food, we're also really empowering ourselves a little bit more as well too. So there's something we get out. There's so much we get out of our garden spaces. Rob, it's great chat. Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining with us today, and again for bringing all of the great questions, and hope that all of you really enjoyed the conversation as well too. And again too, I want to just remind people as we're ending the show today that go and check out our conversation from yesterday's show. Let's see here real quick. Sorry. Check out our conversation from yesterday's show. We had with us Vikram Bugliga, the plant professor. He's a plant and soil scientist, PhD from Texas Tech University. And we had a really great conversation talking all sorts of things with the plant professor. Profile he has on Instagram and other places. He makes these really cool reels kind of breaking down garden myths and all of these really crazy things that you see out there all the time with some of these things and content out there. And he really breaks down whether they're a myth or if there's something that actually makes sense with them too. That's one of the things I really like about it. So he'll tell you if it's actually something that would work. You see a lot of crazy things, out there. And then also we talked with Alexis from At the Urban Garden Her. We're the Urban Gardener, and I love her page. She's the Urban Garden Her, and does again some really great urban gardening with city spaces in Washington D.C. So really great to have talked to her yesterday on Saturday's show, and then join with us next Saturday. Again, we're here on Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And next Saturday, we have joining with us our good friend Scott Head from Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Scott is just a real great backyard gardener and all of that. We'll talk a little bit maybe more about some backyard orchard culture with him as well. I know he's got a few trees. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit with Scott as well too. But great to have him back on the show. He was with us early on as we got the show started last year. And then again to June 8th. Now, remember, I want to let everybody know we're going to be an hour ahead from normal for this very special featured guest presentation on June 8th. We've got joining with us Mark Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me. I mean, this is huge for us. Mark is just an amazing grower and orchardist himself as well too. So we'll maybe drop some of these great fruit tree questions on him as well too. But he gardens out of Australia, and he'll be joining with us nice and bright and early from the future on that one there. Again, as I said, we're going to be an hour ahead, so that will make it he's going to be way in the future. That'll be an hour ahead on Saturday, so that'll be noon for us Pacific time here on the show, and it will be Sunday 5 a.m. in the morning for Mark. So really awesome of him to get up early and be with us live for that show. So definitely be sure to mark your calendar, come join that show, bring some great questions for Mark as well too, as I'm sure this is going to be a really great and lively conversation, as Mark has a lot of followers, and we could probably be seeing some pretty good conversation in our comments there too. So again, we've got some really great things coming up here for sure, coming up here really soon. And again, thank you all so much here for joining with me today and this weekend, the Memorial Day weekend. I hope everybody's having a great Memorial Day weekend. And And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm going to go get out into the garden here. I've got lots and lots of things still going on. As I said, this is a really, really busy time of the year for all of us gardeners, and I've got lots to get to. So I'm going to get out there, and I'll see all of you hopefully this next Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on the Urban Gardener channel. All right, now let's get growing.